Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome to today's video for Legends of Runeterra, where we're going to be going over the upcoming patch for patch 1.10. The video's probably going to be a little bit short. There's not much to unpack in this patch, but the little bit that we have is very important. Some fairly big changes, nerfs, buffs, whatever. So let's get into it. First off, before we get into that, let's read this card updates thing. Patch 1.10 lands 3 weeks after the call of the mountain patch, rather than the usual 2. Okay. It's given us room to lock in more balance changes than usual for the first post-release patch. It's also not quite enough room to gather data on all the stuff, so we'll be following up with more balance changes in just 2 weeks as part of patch 1.11. For that patch, we'll have a greater focus on target-specific tuning after using the additional time to observe and test. Here's a preview of a few things to expect in patch 1.11. Adjustments to the difficulty of Aurelian Soul level up requirement. I'm a little worried because I don't think Aurelian Soul's... Aurelian Soul is both like easy and not easy to level up, so I'm a little worried about that, but whatever. I can wait and see. Adding escalation to Hush's repeatable cost. I assume they're probably going to make it so it's like the first Hush costs 3, and then it costs 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and so on and so forth. If they go with that method, then like you can only cast 3 Hushes in one turn, because that's what 3 plus 4 plus 5. That's 12 mana then. And to cast 3 Hushes in one turn now would cost 9 mana. So nice change, and it prevents you from doing infinite combos because eventually, like, you can't just infinitely cast Hush over and over and over if they make it that. If they change it that way, because eventually Hush will cost more mana than you can actually afford. Unless the cost reduction is not working the way I think it does, which I've never played the infinite Hush combo, so I don't know if it works that way, but maybe it does. And Grandfather Rumal will be giving more hugs. I don't know if that's a cheeky joke or actually they're going to buff Grandfather Rumal. I can't even remember what Grandfather Rumal does. All I remember, he's an 8-drop who kind of sucks. But, you know, maybe he'll see play if he gets a buff. Anyway, though, let's look at the changes. First off, I love it. Ezreal, hate the lad. He's getting a nerf. Ezreal, he's getting nerfed from 8 to 10 times. So now you have to target 10 things to level him up. I like this nerf. It doesn't really change Ezreal too much. So it's not like some nerfs where you just nerf a card and the card's just dead. I think Ezreal is still playable and he still fills the role of like an anti-control deck finisher, like Karma Ezreal. You just can't. It's just slowing those kind of decks down now a little bit. So control and I'd say like greedy mid-range decks don't feel as worried about Ezreal and aren't as like rushing, if that makes sense, to try and kill their opponent because they're like, okay, I've got another 2 extra targets to basically wait until I have to kill my opponent. Still though, not a big change, and of course Riptide Rex and how Ezreal works is still the same. And Riptide Rex will probably still auto-level Ezreal with the way Rex is if their opponent has stuff on the board. Let's see what they said. Ezreal is an exciting build-around and a unique combo/control finisher. All things we want to preserve, but its design also presents some "is this fun to play against?" This is not fun to play against argument. Love it. Where was I? Challenges that we've already discussed previously. Increasing the difficulty of Ezreal's quest will ask for additional investment to reach his extremely potent level 2 form, and create more tension in the choice between leveling up his quest and saving damage for the opponent's Nexus. Yeah, actually, that is true. You might have to use some Get Excited and Mystic Shots on units instead of saving them for face damage. So yeah, it's a small nerf, but I like it. And of course, Ezreal right now at least isn't even that good, so it's a weird balancing act. Because like when Ezreal is good, he's really good, and then you have metas like this where Ezreal's just kind of mediocre. Next up, we got Lee Sin. I don't know if this is actually a nerf or a buff. I want to lean more towards this as a overall buff, but it's more of a side grade that, in my opinion, tilts more towards being an overall buff. Lee Sin is now going to be a 4-mana 3/4 instead of being a 6-mana 3/6. I think that part alone is a buff. Making him cheaper and keeping his health high, really good. Like 4-mana 3/4, that's fine. To level him up, though, you have to cast 8 spells instead of 7. Obviously, that's a nerf, but is it so bad? Because you can now get him out, and you can do the whole, like, challenger barrier stuff, and you can kind of, like, Lee Sin can kind of be like a Vi, sort of, or a Diana, if you will, and cast 2 spells in a turn, maybe even just 1 if you don't care about the barrier, and he'll start picking apart problematic cards, so that's nice. The bigger thing, I think, with the rework, if you will, of Lee Sin is they changed his champ spell. His old champ spell was Dragon Rage, the kick thingy. Now, though, it's Sonic Wave, much, much better champ spell. Actually activates Lee Sin too, helps him level up. Really good, really, really good change there. Really good buff. That's why, like, that specifically becoming Sonic Wave instead of being Dragon's Rage is why I lean more towards this whole thing being a overall buff. Because Dragon's Rage was a bad card. You would almost never see your opponent play Dragon's Rage unless, like, I don't know, they didn't have anything else to do and you weren't really representing anything. Let's see what they have to say about this. Lee Sin has been the least played Rising Tides champion since his release. I mean, they're saying it, so I believe them, but I'm trying to think, like, aren't most of the champions from Rising Tides, like, highly playable? Like, they're all pretty good. I think, actually, they are correct. Like, Lee Sin is probably the worst. Maybe Vi, but Vi had her time in the sun where she had to get nerfed, but nowadays I would actually say Vi is probably down there too, but Vi Ezreal is a thing, so not really. We're reworking him to be significantly cheaper and able to make an impact earlier in the game while making more sense alongside the double casting archetype. I do like that Ionia is getting some buffs here with Lee Sin. Ionia has felt weak for a while, ever since they had like that Will of Ionia, Shadow Assassin, etc., nerfs. We've also changed Lee Sin's champ spell to Sonic Wave. While this is a more unusual change, Lee Sin's Dragon Rage was often a poor fit for Lee Sin decks due to being expensive and slow speed, resulting in rarer use than we'd like to see in a champ spell. It's also just a bad card. I'm sorry. His new spell should help his early game and allow Lee Sin to contribute more synergy to followers. I think this is actually the first time they've changed a champion's champ spell. Unless there's a time in the closed beta that I can't remember, but I think this is actually the first time they've changed it. I do like that they're open to changing champ spells, though. That is a very nice way of buffing or nerfing champs without actually changing the cards themselves, like the card's stat line or cost. Next up, I think that's the last champ. Yeah, we got War Chefs. I hate this card. We also got a Flash of Brilliance here too. We'll talk about that later. I've hated War Chefs. 4 mana, or just 4 mana. I wish it was 4 mana. 2 mana, 2/3. Really strong card. Pretty much just comes down in the early game, clogs up the board, and you're a little sad if you're doing anything. Attacks in really well, so now it's becoming a 1/3. I think this is good. If they made it a 2/2 instead of a 1/3, I think it would be a dead card. It would just trade for like Cythrias and the Sunny guy, the 1-mana 2/2 Daybreak guy, whose name I can't remember at this moment. But this way, it doesn't actually kill like the support decks with Lulu. It just like makes it so it's not as good on board. You can actually block it without actually having things die. Like you can use your 1-drops now, like your Cythrias, to block War Chefs and other such 1-drops that have more than 1 health. So all in all, nice nerf. As someone who hates playing against like Bannerman and just aggro decks in general, I'm glad to see this nerf. Poor Demacia though. It's gotten so many nerfs though to its decks and stuff, and it keeps trucking along. Let's see what they have to say about it. War Chefs has been a consistent fixture of mid-range Demacia decks, always earning its keep through the potential to create huge early advantages. Yeah, like the classic turn 1 Fleet Feather Tracker, turn 2 War Chefs. We'd like to see more variety, so we're making this change to allow more counterplay via blocking and rein in how consistently the card can create snowball wins. Thank you. Like, I always hate that curve of turn 1, like, Fleet Feather Tracker, turn 2 War Chefs, turn 3, like, Misfortune or something. Also, Flash of Brilliance is going back to 3 mana. I like that. The Tri-Beam card is something that my mind immediately goes to now that Flash is going back to 3. Also, Lee Sin is getting a buff, and Flash of Brilliance and Lee Sin decks are kind of cute, but not really that good. Also, of course, like Pursuit of Perfection and Submersible, of course, but those are just mostly memes. Not Submersible so much. I'm still on the I think Submersible is a decent card that will see play in a tier 1 deck one of these days, but not today. Yeah, poor Flash of Brilliance. Ever since Heimerdinger got reworked and then Shadow Assassin and Will of Ionia also got nerfed, Flash of Brilliance has seen no play. I like that they're making it back to 3 mana. Plus, it doesn't really... You're not really going to see, like, Heimerdinger again because we don't have the problem of, like, creating a 3-1 elusive now. It creates 3-1 fearsomes, I think, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. I haven't seen a Heimerdinger in forever because that card sucks now. Also, plus Vi and Shadow Assassin and Will of Ionia have all been nerfed, so that's also another big thing. So let's see what they say about Flash of Brilliance. What would patch notes be without a change to Flash of Brilliance? Okay. We're reverting a previous change made simultaneously with an update to Heimerdinger. Overall, Flash's satisfaction and usability took too much of a collateral hit from these changes. That's true. Heimerdinger and Flash are ultimately a natural pairing, and we'd like to restore the appeal of such a core interaction while also making Flash more appealing to a wider variety of decks. Oh, like I was saying earlier. We could see some Heimerdinger. Like, Heimerdinger Lux is bad, but maybe this will bring back Heimerdinger Lux? I still think it's bad. Like, I'm just thinking, like, why would you play Heimerdinger Lux when Lux Aurelion Soul's probably better? Like, what does Heimerdinger do now? You don't really kill anything with elusives like Heimerdinger decks used to. Unless you want to spam 6-mana spells, which is a bad idea. Plus there's a lot of pings in the meta too, between Make It Rains and Unspeakable Horrors and more, so the turrets from Heimerdinger are kind of meh. But who knows, maybe Heimerdinger will see a return. Next we got like Overgrown Snapvine. A small buff, mostly a meme card. It's going from a 4-3 to a 5-3. Card is still a meme in my opinion, but it's nice. Like, just throw a meme card a little bit of a small buff. Let's see what they have to say about it. Overgrown Snapvine has been a frequent request for updates among the Epic card roster. Yeah, people love this card. I've tried to play it a little bit myself. Never really succeeded. You know, you try to play it with like Callistas, Elises, Maokais, etc., and then you lose like 80% of the time. Snapvine can sometimes lock you out of playing meaningful units, and while we want to be careful given the potential of its effect, a simple boost to its power should provide a significant usability and payoff upgrade. Yeah. You can still kill it with like Get Exciteds and Grass, so that's nice, so it's not a problem, I think. Next up, Crackshot Corsair. 1 mana 1/1, now it's a 1 mana 2/2, or sorry, oh, if this thing became a 1 mana 2/2, it would be insane. It's now just a 1 mana 1/2. Card's already okay enough. I heard it's actually, I don't play too much Expedition, but I hear this card's really, really good in Expedition. But again, like I said, I don't really play Crackshot Corsair. I mean, like, I guess it lets you plunder pretty much every turn, almost every turn. Every time you have an attack, really, with this card out, so that's cool, I guess. Doesn't die to pings now, so this is like a buff for constructed. Let's see what they have to say, actually. Bilgewater's cheap and aggressive plunder-based units haven't been seeing much usage outside of Jagged Butcher. Yeah, because that card's great. What else do they have to say? This adjustment should help Corsair and be a more viable option in Bilgewater-based aggro. I guess, like, you could play this and play the Butcher, but I feel like you could probably play a better 1-drop in whatever your second region is. Unless you're playing, like, mono Bilgewater, which could be a thing coming up. Also, card's not mentioned, but it's a small, like, very small, negligible, pretty much buff to Petty Officer, the 3/2 who either creates powder or a 1-drop. Like, anytime a 1-drop gets buffed, that guy is sort of happy. so like negligible it's barely worth mentioning, but hey, it's a thing. So yeah, I like it. Cute card though. Very high waifu value. Next up, we got Jagged Taskmaster and Yordle Grifter. Taskmaster is going to become a 2-mana 3/2 from a 3-mana 4/3. I don't know if I don't really know much about what to say about this card. I guess like it comes down early now, and you can actually have a curve now in the 1-drop decks, or whatever you want to call it, 1-cost deck archetype, which isn't really a thing at the moment, but it gives you a nice curve. So like you play a 1-drop, you plunder on 2, you play this thing. 2-mana 3/2s, fairly okay for the cost. Like I've played 2-mana 3/2s just as 3/2s and not really cared about their text just because of fearsome decks. So let's see what they have to say. We're adjusting the Taskmaster to make it easier to utilize in its core decks, also making it more accessible to a wider variety of Bilgewater decks. Yeah, it's nice, but I think it's overall a buff. Sure, it's losing 1/1 of stats and it costs 1 less, but I think that's overall a buff, just that it comes down faster and starts to buff up your deck and just, beats down your opponent. If you're playing a deck that's playing Jagged Taskmaster, you're pretty much an aggro deck. Next up, one of the nerfs besides Ezreal that I'm most excited about, because I hate Ezreal and I hate Yordle Grifter. Yordle Grifter is getting changed. Used to be he always got the warning shot no matter what, with the Allegiance being nab 1. Now they're making it so you only get the warning shot if you hit the Allegiance. So if you whiff on Allegiance, he's just a 4-mana 3/3. That's bad. And this is nice. It hurts decks that are not very heavy Bilgewater, like Swain TF, if they're not Leviathan focused and they're more focused on Riptides. They can't really play Grifter reliably, even though sometimes they'd rather just play Zap instead. And not too many Swain decks even play Grifter, but sometimes they do. So yeah, I like this. I would see a lot of time where my opponents, or even myself, would play a Yordle Grifter. You'd whiff on the Allegiance, and you'd be like, oh, well, I don't get a card. That sucks, but I got the warning shot, so I can play an on-curve Riptide Rex on turn 8 and just dominate the board from there. Nice nerf. Lots of people are very angry at Riptide Rex and very passionate about him getting nerfed. I think this is a good way of nerfing Riptide Rex without nerfing Rex. Like, very, very slight nerf against Rex, because you can't really use this card to reliably get a warning shot. You're going to have to either use an actual spell from your deck, like a Make It Rain or a Parlay, or put in warning shot yourself into your deck to activate Rex on turn 8, or of course just hit your opponent in the face with your units. So that's nice. Let's see what they have to say, though. Allegiance cards are intended and balanced to be quite powerful given the expected cost of their deck building constraints. Yordle Grifter has proven too easy to rely on in decks that stretch those constraints too far, so we're extending the Allegiance requirements to both of its effects. It's nice. Sure. I don't like playing against Riptide Rex, so I'll take it. And I think the last, this is the last card change. Cygnus the Moonstalker. Very simple buff here. Used to be a 6-mana 4/2. He's going to become a 5/3. I like it. Nightfall decks are okay, I think. Like, I think they're fairly strong at the moment, like tier 2, like Diana, Nocturne, etc., etc. The problem is, like, they kind of start to stall in the late game and run out of gas, I've noticed, whenever I play against them. And Cygnus wasn't really played in that deck unless they got it from Unspeakable Horrors, which you can't even count it coming from the deck then, of course. I think this buff might make Cygnus see play in those decks, but Cygnus is still really slow. But you might play like 1 or 2 Cygnuses now. Who knows? Plus, it's a buff to Unspeakable Horrors, and I like that card too. I play that card in a lot of stuff. I'm like, oh, Vile Feast? No, that's old news. Unspeakable Horror, let's go. Not much to say here, it seems, from Riot. Cygnus was simply too low on raw stats to be a powerful curve topper for Nightfall decks. Okay, yeah, sure. So yeah, that's it for card changes, I believe. Got a couple of things here about a new lab and stuff. Standard Gauntlet update, though. Multi-deck pick and ban. Last month, we updated the Singleton Gauntlet to allow tri-region decks, and now the Standard Gauntlet gets its own update with the introduction of a pre-match multi-deck pick and ban lobby. You'll now start off the standard gauntlet by picking 3 different decks you'd potentially like to field. Different how? Well, there are a few rules in place. No champs duplicated between decks. This is like some tournament mode. I could see this becoming a tournament mode that like Riot themselves will officiate. Different region combinations for each deck. Okay, so if you use Piltover and Zaun along like PNZ and Ionia, you can't use Ionia and PNZ for a second deck, I guess, even if you don't use the same champs. Maximum 1 championless deck. That's kind of weird to make that a rule, but okay. After locking in your decks, you'll queue like normal until you're matched with an opponent and enter the pick and ban lobby. Here you'll get to view regions and champs for your opponent's decks and ban one of them from being played while they return the favor. Then pick which of your remaining 2 decks you'd like to pilot into the following single game match. Each opponent brings a new pick and ban phase. Single game match. Huh. So I assume it means like you bring 3 decks. The way I'm seeing it is you bring 3 decks. So does your opponent. Before the game actually starts, you and your opponent see each other's decks, but you don't see the deck list. You just see the champs and the regions, and that's it. You pick one of the decks and your opponent picks a deck. You can't pick those decks. They're banned. And then you pick one of your unbanned or non-banned cards or decks, and so does your opponent, and you play like normal. And that's it? Because it says like following single game match. So I assume you don't play like first to win with both decks. And it's not like I won with my first deck, that's out, take the second deck, try to win with the second deck against their remaining decks. I can't remember. I think that was called like Conquest in Hearthstone, their tournament format. I don't know. I don't really follow Hearthstone too much. I could see this actually becoming a official tournament mode. If so, I like it. It does sound really fun. The problem is for people like me who are kind of about only one archetype is it's a little bad for us who are like, oh, I only like control, or I only like aggro, or I only like combo. It kind of forces you to play all different types of archetypes, which is fine. And we got a new lab too as well. Let's look at this. This patch also brings us our first ever constructed lab. Instead of receiving random cards or choosing from a set of pre-constructed options, you'll be challenged to brew the perfect deck. Or if you'd rather get right into the action, you can choose quick play and queue up with one of Heimerdinger's own concoctions. Oh, that's cool. Welcome to the Jungle is inspired by the jungling gameplay of League. Take the time to clear your opponent's jungle camps and you'll be handsomely rewarded. Okay, sure. Both players have vulnerable, immobile jungle monsters on their board. Killing your opponent's jungle monsters grants you a powerful buff spell with your choice of potent effects. Gotta get that red buff. Killing a jungle monster also spawns another in its place next round. Watch out, the new ones may be even stronger as the game goes on. Okay, they are immobiles. Immobile, if I remember correctly, means you can't block or attack with them, so that's good. You can't use them as like free units to like attack in or buff or something or block. So that's nice that they thought of that. And I think that's it. Yeah, of course there's the that's it for what I care about, but there's the expedition changes, tightening things up after the debut of Call of the Mountain, diluted invoke heavy target archetypes. I've heard that expedition is very, very invoke heavy right now, where it's like if you have a lot of invoke stuff, you probably just win, which have been a bit too consistent, made the usual buffs to struggling archetypes, and adjusted cohesiveness rating increase for some archetypes that were showing up too far into drafts when you weren't focusing on them. We're also heavily reducing the offering bonus for Call of the Mountain archetypes. Call of the Mountain archetypes will now be offered during the initial champ picks half as often as previously, or 50% more than normal for the duration of patch 1.10. The offering bonus will be removed completely with patch 1.11. Okay. And then you got like the whole like buckets here of cards being changed. You get to see like cute Megumin here. Look at her again. So that's nice. I don't play too much Expedition, so I don't really care about this, but you know, as always, I'll link the patch notes in the video description so you can look at this yourself. Also, something that people have been asking for, cross-shard friend challenges. You can now challenge your friends and 1v1 them no matter what shard they're playing on, so that's nice. And then a bunch of bug fixes, but you know, this is a big one though, the first one. The Empyrean and Dragonling now correctly have the dragon type. I wonder if that means I can get Empyrean from Inviolus Vox. I assume Dragonling won't come from Inviolus Vox because Dragonling's not an actual card, it's just a non-collectible card, if that makes sense. But Empyrean is. Anyway, though, that's it. Like I said, not a big patch, but there was a lot to talk about, mostly because of a sizable amount of buffs. So sounds like it's gonna be fun. I already have a few decks that are already in mind of what to play when this patch comes out. So I hate Ezreal. Thank God Ezreal is not gonna die. He's probably still gonna be around, but he's gonna go away for a bit. Less played, not as heavily played. And with that all said and done, thank you all for listening to me ramble about the patch notes. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to leave a like or a comment down below. And if you guys want to keep up with the Runeterra content, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to watch me play some Legends of Runeterra, you can go and check me out on Twitch TV at twitch.tv/Senaton. Anyway, though, with that all said and done, thank you all again once more for watching this video. And until I see you guys in the next one, bye!